Hey everyone, welcome back to week 11 of On the Water's 14-week Striper Migration Report series. My name is Matt Haeffner. I'm the assistant editor here at On the Water magazine. And just like we've done for the past 10 weeks, we're going to give you a brief rundown of last week's migration report before jumping into this week's guests. Last week, we touched base with Tim Regan on the South Fork of Long Island, and Tim gave us the rundown on how surfcasters are tackling the recent wave of large bass on the East End by focusing their efforts on the inlets and beaches where bunker pods have been present during the day. Tim also talked about the wolf packs of 10 to 25 pound stripers he's been seeing in the surf as they head east towards Wantagh, and even dove into his personal approach for fishing the beach lip for larger stripers using beast flies and sand flea or mole crab flies to intercept some of those eastbound bass. Then we headed up the coast to Massachusetts to talk with Captain Brian Coombs of Get Tight Sport Fishing, who filled us in on the rich forage base around Boston and Massachusetts South Shore. Brian ran through some of his techniques for fishing live bait, as well as the current class of fish around Boston and what class of fish he expects to see locally after the passing of the June new moon. But for our first guest this week, we're headed back down to Long Island, only this time to the West End, where stripers in the 40 to 50 pound class have been gorging on scattered pods of bunker for miles over the past 5 days. Okay, so our first guest this week is a longtime employee of Causeway Bait and Tackle on the South Shore of Long Island. He also works closely with local brands like Joe Bags Outdoors, and he captains a beautiful 2012 Pursuit OS 385, the Lady Ashley 2. Please welcome Brandon Weitz. How's it going, Brandon?
How's it going, Matt? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. It's good to see you. We haven't seen each other, I
Yes.
think, since we did a little fishing at the Edison show back in March.
Oh yeah, that was wasn't the best adventure, but it was fun. It was good. Had a good
Yeah,
time. Always good,
yeah. That's how you
seeing
know
you
you
guys.
icebreaker the season.
Exactly. You didn't catch any fish, but it was a good adventure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we got out with Nick and a couple other guys like Paulie from BPM Fishing. So we
Yep.
we got out there. We gave it an effort, but that was a couple months ago. So a lot has changed since then. And I wanted to start off by saying, I'm admittedly very jealous of some of the fish that I saw you post on Causeway Bait and Tackle's IG page this week, and it looks like you've got some extra large bass that moved into the area recently. So like, when did those 40 to 50 inch class begin to show in better numbers on the western South Shore of the island?
So it's been, I would say, about a week or so. They started showing up. The bunker pods, they just moved in very thick. There's bunker everywhere, from 15 feet to 45 feet of water. There's big bass on them. Not every, there's a lot of pods out there, but you find the right pod, it's holding a lot of bass, mid 40, 50 pound fish. I've seen fish over 55 inches come up, but
Crazy.
it just, within the last week, it just blew up, and the fishing's insane right now.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I mean, I got out with you last fall, and it was just like bunker everywhere. So I'm curious, is it just like a massive belt of bunker across the West End, kind of like we experienced, or is it like much more scattered pods, not acres of them at a
it's
time?
it's definitely more scattered. I think there was a lot more fish in the fall that were pushing the bass right onto the surface. It's definitely miles and miles of bunker out there now. I think in the fall we had a smaller congregation of them,
Yeah.
all boiling up on top of the water. And I mean, the fishing was good. We usually don't get this good of a fishing in the spring for striped bass, but this year it turned on out of nowhere, and it's all big fish. It's unfortunate there's no slot fish, but
Yeah.
you're looking for that trophy fish. Now's the time to get out.
100%. And like, I mean, there was a total lack of bunker in places like Jamaica Bay and Raritan Bay even this spring. So it's good to see them having shown up, and like, it seems to be that they're going to stick around, because this is generally what happens on the South Shore of the island is like, once you see these bunker pods come in, they really station off the South Shore. The sharks come in, the rays come in, and it all kind of comes together in the summer fishing.
Yeah, exactly. And like a month ago, I ran from Jones to Raritan Bay and maybe like two or three pods. So it's definitely changed the bunker here. Threshers are showing up now. There's giant bluefin in these pods, so it's definitely heating up and it's getting excited. Hopefully the cobias show up soon, and it's just going to be game on.
Man, the potential for like a bluefin or a thresher taking one of your live bunker or something while you're bass fishing is just so crazy.
I know it's incredible that it could happen, but it has happened to me in the last spring. I was live bunker fishing and I hooked a thresher on my baitcaster. Had no chance. Jumped about three times, broke me off, but it was a cool experience.
Well, you
It's
had a
cool to hook
bluefin take
something.
a metal lip this past fall too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We were fishing the fall, and great bass bite, topwater feeds. My buddy put a metal lip on, and it took it right next to the boat. 400
Um,
pound bluefin, and a 4,000 size spinning reel, we got spooled in like 30 seconds. Not
Yeah, you
much you
don't
could
stand a
do there,
chance.
but it was a fun experience while you're bass fishing, but not much you could do there.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's amazing the amount of life they bring in, and it's good to see that there's some big bass. I'd imagine though they're still pushing up from the Chesapeake, but they do look like Chesapeake fish, just kind of beat up and stuff. But I know you were out yesterday afternoon, and it sounded like you did pretty well out there with live bunkers. So can you describe how the bite has like changed, if it's changed at all over the past week since the arrival of those fish?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely changed. The problem is that there's so much bunker. It's like, how do you find a pod to start with?
Right.
Um, I probably hit about 30 pods before I got my first fish, but
Oh
I started
wow.
to realize you find the smaller pods and there's more fish on them. The bigger pods just how does how does a bass find that one bunker that you throw into the pod? It's
Yeah.
kind of tough, but the smaller pods are holding more fish. And I found one pod; it was just fish after fish. I think the smallest was like 38 pounds up to 44
Wow.
pounds. All big fish, all safely released, and it was definitely a good trip. We had probably about 14 bass,
Yeah. Okay.
and as the day got on, it got better. We got back to the inlet about 6 o'clock. At like 4:30, it got better and just kept getting better.
So hitting those smaller bunker pods, I wonder if that, I mean, you're starting to see whales and threshers and stuff show up now. So I'd imagine that they're kind of targeting those larger schools of bunker, whereas, stripers
Yeah,
be able to pick off, little stragglers easily here and there when there's, I don't know, 100 yards of bunker versus 1,000 yards. It's like,
oh yeah. I mean, I was in 20 feet of water. There was probably a mile of bunker, just one big pod. Pushed out to like 40 feet, you find smaller pods, and it's just like game on. But yeah, these threshers are probably wandering all these big pods, so
yeah,
just gotta
totally.
just gotta work around. But it's the fishing's good right now, so I suggest people go out while they can because it's going to last a week, 2 weeks. It's not going to last forever. So
Yeah, right. I mean, we have the June new moon. It's like right around the corner. It'll have passed by the time that we publish this on Friday. But
yep.
have with all these bunker out there, have the fish shown any interest in flutter spoons or big metal lips or other like bunker imitation
Yes.
baits?
Sorry to interrupt you. Yes, so they have. So I've been using flutter spoons. Had a few fish, mid 40-pound fish. I tend to use the flutter spoons when I'm marking false bottom at the bunker. I've done a couple this year, nothing crazy, just because the live bunker bite's so good. But yeah, I mean, pretty much whatever you throw, they're going to eat for the most part. Even the guys trolling, I catch them, but most guys don't troll as much anymore. So if you
Yeah,
could just get a live bunker, put it on a hook, and send it down, you're going to catch them.
yeah.
And
And we
I
got
did
we got to do
that.
the flutter spoon thing last fall with you too. That was a blast.
Yeah, the flutter spoons are fun. It's definitely a different technique, but when they hit hard, and it's a good fight. And
Yeah.
the fish I had last week on the flutter spoon probably was around 40 pounds, and it took me for a nice run on a light jigging world rod, and it's it's a it's a great time. I love the flutter spoon fishing.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. We did it on both spinning and conventional setups. It works just as well on both. It's really personal preference.
Exactly, and like I'm a big spinning guy, but I'm getting into bait casters and stuff, so I'm gonna start doing that more. I just ordered an accurate, so
There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
have some fun, moving on forward. So, but yeah, it's just whatever you prefer, but they're
Yeah.
gonna both get the job done.
And the bait casters too, like that's what guys like Rob Radliff down in Jersey do. They with those, deep diving metal lips, they have just heavy duty bait casters, a heavy duty casting rod, and it's got to be a lot of fun to fish like bass fishing tackle almost,
Yeah,
or
no,
XL stripers
exactly.
like that.
And I kept saying to myself, I put a metal lip on yesterday. I threw it like twice, and I should have thrown it more. I noticed we were getting these bass more in the corners, the outskirts of the pod, and I should have thrown the metal lip more. I just when the bunker bite's good, you don't really think much. You just
Yeah,
keep going.
yeah,
But
100%.
I should have thrown it more. I had it on the rod, it was ready to go, but you know, when something's good, you don't want to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll have more opportunity. Like you said, I'm sure those fish will be there for a little bit just based on the amount of bunker, But with all those
Yep.
giant bunker sitting out front, it's like, are there any fish still in the bay? I would imagine you're not really fishing the bay, but are there many fish in the bay at all? And if so, like what size class are they?
Yeah, there's definitely some fish at the bridge. I've seen a few come up. We usually will take some bunker back to the Meadowbrook, the bridge, and we'll fish that a little bit. I
Yeah.
haven't tried it in a couple weeks. We did maybe like 2 weeks ago. We had, I don't know, 8 or 9 bass, some slot fish, some overs, but there's still fish around. A lot of bluefish in the bay. A lot of birds working.
Oh, for
Bluefish
sure.
just working under the birds. Um, I actually have a customer that picked off a weak fish while fluke fishing yesterday. So that's a good sign too.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's pretty good. You don't really have to go out to the ocean. Even the surf guys, Jones Inlet's been the jetty's been turning on early in the morning, so this fish should be caught. Obviously, the surf guys will see the bunker from the beach and they
Yeah.
can't reach them,
Oh my God, I
so
know.
it's kind of tough for them. But it's when we're fishing 15, 20 feet of water, it's like the fish are right there for the surf guys, but they just can't reach them sometimes.
Man, that's it. Like the day before I went out with you last fall, it was that exact scenario for me. I'm standing on the beach and I even had some bunker pods, like very nervous schools swimming right along the beach lip. And but I'm seeing fish blow, like big fish blowing up on bunker way out there. And it's just like, man, I got to find a way. So I'm glad I got to get out with you and hit them
Yeah,
on the
no,
flutter spoons the next day.
yeah, we I think you came into the shop, so it was nice. It was just worked perfect. It was like, you want to fish? You're like, absolutely. We didn't get on
100%.
them right away, but once we did, live bunker, flutter spoons, and we had that insane top water feed, which was great to end the day. But
Unbelievable, yeah.
you got a little bit of everything mixed into one trip. So,
Yeah.
you
And it's
know,
it's it's funny how this spring has been almost like a repeat of last fall.
yep, yeah. Usually don't get this Jones Inlet for some reason. The bass just skip over us, but
Yeah.
either I'm running towards Raritan, which I did a couple times, or I run a little bit east, but it's nice not to have to run too far, especially with, the cost of fuel and stuff like that. So
Absolutely.
I'll take it and, just got to keep fishing while you can.
Yeah, 100%. Well, so do you think that there will be another big shift in the fishing pattern after this June new moon passes us?
I would think so. I mean, I have guys still fishing out west, still doing good. I mean, it seems like the Jersey guys are still good. So I hope they keep pushing this way because it would just extend our season that much longer because once they're gone, it's like, now what? You got to go out east to catch bass.
Yeah, right.
But now that the tuna, bluefin are going to start showing off midshore, I'll kind of make the transition from bass to bluefin. But I'm a bass guy.
Yeah.
I could catch bass every day and be happy.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
hopefully we still get a couple more waves of bass coming through, and we could extend this season a little bit longer.
Oh, I think so. I think you'll continue to see. I mean, last year on the outer Cape up here, we had big fish coming up the coast throughout the entire month of July. So I mean, and that's probably those Hudson fish still trickling up the coast. So I'd imagine you guys got some good bass fishing in the weeks to come, and you'll start to see, like you said, less angling pressure just based on the people going for fluke or bluefish or tuna or whatever it might be.
Exactly. I mean the fluke bite in the bay is good. So you got those guys that love the fluke fish, but
Yeah.
when the bass bite is hot, you kind of have to go. And if you're not going, it's like, and that's what I don't get. Like I was out yesterday, there's probably about 30 boats all on one pod. So like one or two
Yeah.
fish go, caught. You go to your own pod, you start doing good. It's like,
Yeah.
there's so much bunker out there. Just because you see two boats on a pod doesn't mean you have to stop there. But I'm telling everyone, get out now while you can because it's a good bite.
Yeah, it sounds like the more you move around, they'll find those less pressured bunker pods, and moving away from the fleet is always a good thing to do. So
Yeah, just got to cover ground.
yeah,
That's what I tell people. Just go pod to pod. Don't spend too long on a pod. Most of our bites were pretty quick, so just got to cover ground and keep moving. Don't
sure.
don't stick to one pod for too long.
And so on that note, I mean, the last thing I'd like to ask you, and that might be your advice, but the last thing I always ask our guests, if you could give one piece of parting advice to striped bass anglers on the South Shore of Long Island this week, what would it be?
With these big fish showing up, I know a lot of guys like to use a light tackle, very light stuff, but these are big fish, so I think using a little heavier gear, getting them in quick, reviving them would be beneficial. Obviously, people talk about the striped bass population, but it seems like there's a lot of bass around. But we just want to keep it going and get these big girls released safely and just have a good time.
Yep, absolutely. That's a
So
great piece of advice. Use the heavier
yeah,
gear. I mean, you'll still be able to enjoy the fight, but just taking care of these fish so we can enjoy it for years to come.
yeah. I mean, I used a pretty heavy rod yesterday. I mean, I'm still rod's bent in half. It's just
Yeah.
I could get it in a little bit quicker, and the less fight time, the better it is for them. And even the 44-pound bass, they all swam off perfectly. So that's what it's about.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Brandon, I appreciate you jumping on, dude. Give my best to the
Yeah,
guys at the shop, and I hope you enjoy the rest
will
of the
do.
spring run, and maybe we can get out with you again this fall.
Yeah, let me know. That's whenever you want to go, just give me a call. We'll get out.
All right, man, we'll do.
Sounds good. Have a good day. Nice to
All
see
right,
you.
take care, bud.
Yes, sir.
Okay, big thanks to Brandon Weitz from Causeway Bait and Tackle for joining us to discuss the recent wave of cow stripers and the hordes of bunker that have inundated Long Island's western South Shore this week. As those fish continue to press east following the new moon, places like Montauk, Block Island Sound, and the rips of Long Island Sound will likely begin to see a few bass settle into their summer residences while the rest of those fish push north and east towards Cape Cod and Rhode Island. Which brings me to our next guest. You may have seen him on the Water's Angling Adventures. He's the spirited captain of Newport Sport Fishing Charters. Please welcome Captain Rob Taylor. Okay, so we've got Captain Rob Taylor of Newport Sport Fishing Charters tuning in this week from Rhode Island, actually from the dock. Rob, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Matt?
All right, man. Can't complain. It sounds like you guys had a pretty good day out on the water. I know you got off the water maybe, a couple hours ago, but, can you run us through kind of what the bass fishing has been like this week in terms of action and like the classes of fish you're seeing locally and forage base?
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, everything is firing on all cylinders. And it's kind of like my favorite time of year because there's many options, right? You can go fish the ocean side or the bay side. So,
Yeah.
and it's got everything in between, which I like because if it's too windy to fish out front, then I can run up the bay and there's still plenty of big bass, under bunker schools,
Right.
to target up in the bay out of the wind. But I mean, it's been a mix. The squid run actually is still kicking pretty strong. Bunkers showed back up in numbers where we had them early, then they left. Now they're back. So there's a
Good.
couple big pods of bunker up the bay, holding plenty of bass. A lot of slot size fish too around them. And then we're starting to see a slow, steady trickle of bigger bass. Moving into the ocean front. And then obviously Block has been pretty hot.
Yeah.
I haven't had to go that far, but a couple of my buddies did, and they've done very well.
Yeah, I figure right as June rolls around, you start seeing some of those fish setting up off a block. And so you mentioned the squid
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Is the squid generally a thing that's happening out front?
It is, yeah, definitely. I mean, that helps drive the bass. And then, you have bunker and other things moving, to and fro. Sand eels also, have
Oh,
been
really?
pretty prevalent. I mean, every time when I leave the harbor of Newport, I can see the sand eel schools kicking around. That and then oddly enough, a bunch of baby butterfish. There's a
Really?
lot of butterfish kicking around, which is good and bad. Can be frustrating when you got a bunch of fish sipping on tiny little butterfish, but
Oh, for sure.
it keeps them around. So if you can figure out how to fool them, it works.
And so for the sand eels, like when you're on your charters, are you noticing, are they smaller sand eels or are they like the real large ones that you see kind of like, during the fall run?
Yeah, not like the huge ones. Right now, they're pretty small. I'd give them like, 4 or 5 inch glass, you know,
Gotcha. Okay.
but
And
they'll
when you,
get bigger.
yeah, I mean, I'm curious, when you're on your charters, if the fish are keyed in on sand eels, like how do you guys target them?
Just keep throwing big top water until they just eat it.
Yeah, they just commit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can match the hatch, but I'll try to go the opposite way and stand out in a crowd. I'm
Yeah.
more apt to grab a bucktail and just go for like the squid or just a bigger bait profile. Generally, because you may cull out a bigger fish in the school anyway,
Right.
by doing that. And then, it's hard to compete with something that looks like a sand eel with 1,000 other sand eels,
For sure. Yeah. Standing
you
out from
know.
the crowd is a great point. I think a lot of times people try really hard to match the hatch, but sometimes we've talked about this in previous guests, it's just giving them something that stands out. And that's really what's going to, turn them onto the bite. So
Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting there with a giant plate of M&Ms and you're like, "Oh, I can eat these," but then all of a sudden someone throws a T-bone steak down and you're hungry, you're gonna not eat the M&Ms.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with big stripers, they want that caloric intake. So they're looking for whatever's larger and whatever stands out. That's a great analogy. I never thought of it that way.
Can you edit this? Because I just dropped my phone. It's hard. Someone came by and waked the boat.
Yeah, we can
Either
absolutely
way,
do it. No worries.
that'll be
But
funny.
so hey Rob, you mentioned that you guys had, bunker around early and then they kind of disappeared. And it sounds like, depending on who you talk to this season, the bunker are either everywhere or they're nowhere. I was just talking to this guy. He was our last guest, Brandon Weitz. He's from a tackle shop down on Long Island, and he was talking about
Yep.
how now they're finally starting to see just acres and acres of bunker pouring into the western South Shore of Long Island. And I know you guys had them, like we said earlier on in the season, but they've thinned out quite a bit since you fished with the on the water crew a few weeks back. And now you're saying you got them back up in the bay. So are you targeting them on flutter spoons?
Yeah, flutter spoons, docks, top water, yeah, bigger paddle tails, and live bunker. Obviously, we know that I love
Sure.
pokey bombs, so when
Yeah,
I can get a net on them and start live chumming, it's a good time.
that's good.
So yeah, it's funny. Who knows? It's been an odd year as far as spring rains. I mean, we had rain event after rain event, and it was like not like a typical May showers or what is it, April showers, spring May flowers. It was like April floods. I mean, it was like every
Yeah.
time it rained, it was 2-3 inches.
Exactly. It was even through May. I mean, like we got, I think the first good weekend we got was Memorial Day weekend, and now we've had a couple of good weekends of good weather. So, it's definitely bringing out a little bit more fishing pressure on the stripers, that's for sure, with the beautiful weekend weather.
Yeah, but I feel like it's also been good. I've noticed stable weather pattern. The fishing has definitely improved. It's just more consistent anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, going back to what you said about pogey bombs, which is the new term I'm going to have to start using. I think our audience will agree that that episode of On the Water's Angling Adventures, where you show everybody how to kind of build a blitz by live chumming bunker, is probably one of, the all-time favorites. So have you been able to do that this year?
Yeah, we did. Since the pogies came back in, we had a couple good days up on, fishing flats, up, kind of in that upper bay area, throwing pogies, using the side scan, finding the wolf packs and
Yeah.
getting them to act up, which is nice.
And so, based on, your knowledge of seasons past in Rhode Island, what changes, if any, do you see in the striper bite, or do you anticipate in the striper bite on the backside of the new moon?
Yeah, I think it's going to just continue to get better and better. More fish are trickling. As you hear, like the bite further south is still pretty strong, right? So that's an indication that there's still plenty of fish to come up the pipeline.
Yeah.
And, I just think that these June moons are travel moons. They're very good fishing moons, but things move on the June moon. So,
Sure.
I think you'll see more and more fish get in and start to set up. And then they'll be in a lot of those summertime patterns, come right around towards the end of June, where you can go to Block Island and catch giant fish, or fish out front here and catch giant fish.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so, like you said, going into the summer months, end of June, I guess, is when that transition really starts to, you start to notice it around places like Block Island. What are some of the techniques you employ on your charters to continue catching those big bass as they settle in and shift towards those summer patterns?
I mean, it's either I keep it simple. We love top water, so we try to keep that first and foremost. But we do varied live bait, whether it's going to be live eels, or even if I can't find bunker in the summertime, I love to bring bunker out to the ocean front.
Oh yeah.
Big soft plastics have really been key over the past couple of years too. It's like it almost replacing the eel. It's crazy to say, but like
I know.
I mean, you got baits like gravity tackle eels and stuff that you can really manipulate well and catch a lot of big fish. I mean, no live bait paddle tails, Ronzi paddle tails, all those things. They work really well. Flutter spoons, they have their time and place. It seems like all year round now. And then for me too, I do love the old tube and worm. It's tough to beat. It is tough to beat.
I can imagine in a rocky structure area like out in the outskirts of Block Island and stuff that just absolutely crushes.
Oh yeah, if you get surgical with it, it's deadly.
Yeah, I bet. And so going back real quick to the large soft plastic eels and stuff you brought up, I'm interested to know how you're working those or how you're rigging them out there. Are you putting them on a jig head, or are you three-weighing them?
Nope, jig head. Yep,
Jig head?
straight jig head. Direct contact to the rod. Cast them out. Work them back in. Vary your cadence, depth, everything like that.
Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what you were just touching on there. Yep.
That's it. That's it.
Awesome. Well, hey, Rob, one of the things I like to do, to wrap up our calls with our guests is if you could give striped bass anglers in Rhode Island one piece of advice this week, what would it be?
Definitely go fishing. Don't wait at the dock and try to get out, And the other thing is, I don't know. I would say really get out there and don't hesitate if you want to fish in the bay or fish out front. This is like one of the best times. I mean, still get up early, have a look around, because if the earlier you get up, the more bird action and clues you'll find, and the good thing is If you feel like it's too crowded, don't be afraid to spread out. This time of year, the bass are literally everywhere. They're from top to bottom,
Right.
So there's fish to be had, with all the forage fish, because you're at the tail end of the herring run. So there's still plenty of herring dumping out of the estuaries and bays.
Mm-hmm.
The bunker have finally come back in the bay, which is nice. You got the squid out front. So it's, don't spend the weekend on the couch. Get out there and fish.
Yeah, and the options abound. And like you said, you have either the ocean front or you got up inside the bay. So if you're, noticing a lot of fishing pressure, or, you're just looking for a different class of fish, maybe it pays to move, especially this time of year. Cause like you said, those fish are on the move. So
that's right.
Awesome. Well, Rob, I appreciate you jumping on, man. I know you're a busy guy and you'll probably got an early wake up call for your next charter tomorrow morning. So I'll let you go.
Awesome. All right, Matt. Well, good talking with you.
Hey, likewise, Rob. Thanks for jumping on, man. I appreciate it. Okay, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks again to our guests, Brandon Weitz from Causeway Bait and Tackle on Long Island, and Captain Rob Taylor of Newport Sport Fishing Charters in Rhode Island. This is about as widespread as big fish get during the spring migration. We've got bass from 30 to 50 pounds ranging from southern New Jersey all the way up to Rhode Island, and stripers in the 40-inch class in Maine as early as last week. Things are definitely looking up as the June new moon passes us by. Just keep in mind what Rob Taylor said. The June moons are generally moving moons, which means if there aren't trophy class fish in your neck of the woods just yet, there's no reason to fret. They're on their way, and with stripers continuing to file out of the Hudson and more bunker schools popping up across the entire coast, June is setting up to be another fantastic month in terms of both quality and quantity. And with all those big fish on the move, there's no better time than now to sign up for On the Water's Striper Cup. It's a 20-week catch and release based striped bass fishing tournament, and we're giving away weekly prizes from Penn, Yeti, Bubba, Turtle Box Audio, and Costa Sunglasses for members who submit their photos on stripercup.com. Check out the website for the rules and more information on the cup. That's all for this week. Thanks everybody for watching. Get out there and fish hard, and be sure to check back next week for another striper migration report from On the Water.